Gregory held his hands about 2 feet apart to indicate the size of the stack of letters he received from others claiming to be Hughes' long-lost relatives. Oh yeah, when there's death and money on the table, they all come out. Hi, Jeff Mersanti, the Plain English Attorney, and today we've got an interesting one, and this is about the estate of Howard Hughes. Well, he died a long time ago, but the reason this kind of triggered something in my head to say, okay, let's go ahead and do a video on this, is I'm still the biggest hit on my law firm's website is this article that I did back in 2010 about the estate of Howard Hughes and what a mess it was because he didn't have a written plan. And we'll go ahead and we'll put that as a link in the description for the video below. But also, only about a few weeks ago, a woman called up and was basically yelling and screaming at my assistant that she did a DNA test and she's an heir of Howard Hughes and she demanded to get a share of his estate and she knows we're the attorneys who are handling that estate and you're going to do this for me and you're going to do this for me. She hung up on her. Well, okay, I'm not running the estate of Howard Hughes. I just wrote an article on it. But what that really reminded me is there were a lot of crazy people coming out of the woodwork trying to get part of his estate. I've got my article, and please go ahead and check it out. But really, one of the best definitive articles on this is from the Washington Post going back to 1981. So what I'm going to do is go through it along with some commentary, and really you just got to be shaking your head. And it really is true. There's nothing like death and money on the table to make people go a little crazy. So now I'm quoting from this article from the Washington Post by Pete Bruton from September 5th, 1981. Now, the article I had was about how Howard Hughes' estate ended up getting settled 34 years later. And even when I did the article, it was almost there. It wasn't quite there. It was almost there. And that was back in 2010. So keep that in mind. And the article is Jury Divvies Howard Hughes' Fortune After an Air Raid, H-E-I-R raid, in Texas court. More than 5 years after the late billionaire Howard Hughes died, the division of his vast estate was finally determined today in a small Texas courtroom. Well, the estate might have been determined, but it wasn't finished or liquidated because I did that article. What's that? 29 years later.
If you think it's important for educational videos like this to get out there, then please help us out by subscribing to the channel.
After 7 weeks of testimony, some of it carried out in a circus atmosphere, the show finally closed tonight when a Harris County probate court jury decided that the paternal heirs are 3 granddaughters of Hughes' uncle, Rupert Hughes, and 2 of the uncle's stepchildren. The verdict means the 3 sisters, Chris Roberts, 57, of Cleveland, Beth DePould, 56, of San Francisco, and Barbara Cameron, 55, of Los Angeles, each will get 6 1/3% of the estate. The one living stepdaughter, Alvis Hughes McIntyre, 80, of Montgomery, Alabama, will get 4 3/4% of the estate, as will the heirs of her late brother, Rush. The value of the estate has been conservatively estimated at $500 million. The 3 sisters had been challenged by nearly 600 people, claiming that their mother, Elspeth, was not Rupert's legitimate daughter. Okay. Now, this is a quote from one of the daughters, Roberts. "I knew all along my mother was legitimate," said Roberts. "The money makes me happy," she said, "but it makes me happier that my mother's name is cleared." Debacle said she was delighted with the decision, but had not given much thought to what she would do with the money. Cameron joked, and this is one of the reasons I work with my clients to help avoid probate. Cameron joked about the lawyers getting most of the proceeds, and then said more seriously, "Our grandchildren will get it." Okay. One of their attorneys said the money probably would be distributed in about 2 years. Okay, this was 1981. In about 2 years would have been 1983. In 2010, I wrote an article about how the estate was still not closed. Okay. Even considering the inevitable appeals and other legal roadblocks that remained. 2 years. Generally, in such cases, attorneys work for a contingency fee of about 40% of the proceeds. Oh, wow. Imagine that. McIntyre, a widow, was not present when the verdict was reached. The magistrate in the case, probate judge Pat Gregory, had already determined that Hughes' paternal heirs, about 16 first cousins or their estates, would receive 71.5% of the estate under a pre-trial agreement between the paternal and maternal sides of the family. And so, with what seems to be only a few snippets of legal red tape yet to be clipped, the final chapter in the legendary life and death of the reclusive billionaire ended. Oh yeah, just a few minor points that would take another 29 years to settle. The final chapter was as bizarre at times as the life of the man who made it all happen. Here's how it went in these last 7 weeks in Judge Gregory's courtroom, and here's where the ridiculousness comes in. The mother of Howard Hughes was Aline Gano Hughes, the daughter of a prominent Dallas judge. She was the embodiment of charm and refinement. She died in 1922 at age 39 from complications after minor surgery. The woman before Judge Gregory, almost 60 years later, was in her early 60s. The left side of her curly hair was blonde, the right side black, apparently a combination of 2 different wigs. On top sat a straw hat festooned with multicolored feathers. Her silver blouse bore a large Confederate flag on the back. Over that, she wore a gold lame jacket which was split down the back to reveal the flag. She had on tan silk culottes along with sandals, but no hose. One pair of glasses perched on her nose, and a larger pair of sunglasses covered those. So she was double wearing her glasses. Another pair was stuck on the brim of her hat. She was weighed down with necklaces, bracelets, charms, and assorted turquoise jewelry, and large long-looped rings dangled from her ears. A camera hung from her neck. Okay. So, just to recap, she's making a claim that she's Howard Hughes' mother. She was in her 60s. Howard Hughes' mother was almost 40 when she died 60 years ago. Okay. She claims she had dated Presidents Eisenhower and Kennedy and had been caught by her husband in bed with Elvis Presley. She said she is the mother of Howard Hughes, come to claim her rightful inheritance. Okay. She was not alone. More than 600 alleged wives, sons, daughters, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth cousins lined up in Gregory's small courtroom on the 5th floor of the Family Law Center on the north edge of downtown Houston with their hands out, trying to claim a share of the Hughes fortune. Just like the person yelling and screaming at my assistant over the phone 13 years after I wrote the initial article, thinking I somehow or another was the attorney. Let me tell you, I wasn't even in college, let alone law school, back in 1981. So, no, we didn't handle the estate. And those were just the ones who showed up in person or sent a lawyer. Gregory held his hands about 2 feet apart to indicate the size of the stack of letters he received from others claiming to be Hughes' long-lost relatives. Oh yeah, when there's death and money on the table, they all come out. What brought the strange parade of petitioners to Houston was the lure of money. Lots of it. Howard Robard Hughes Jr. died on April 5th, 1976 on a flight from Acapulco to Houston, where he was to have medical treatment. Estimates of the Hughes estate have run from a low of $168.8 million by Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner, and Smith, hired by the executors of the estate, for whom a low valuation would mean lower federal estate taxes, to $465 million by the Internal Revenue Service, to $1.1 billion by the state of California. But a large part of the estate consists of prime undeveloped land in Los Angeles and Las Vegas, whose value is inestimable until it is sold. So no one really knows how much the entire estate is worth, but it's enough, as one lawyer said, to buy you a chicken fried steak with cream gravy. All right. In doing my research for that other article, there were all of these other jurisdictions that were trying to claim that Hughes' estate was supposed to be administered in their court so that they could get some money from it. And I'm sure some of the arguments were being put forth by attorneys who wanted to get a piece of the action. So, okay, it's where he was a resident is what really matters when it comes to an estate. So where did he reside when he died? Well, okay, it was Texas. But he was in Acapulco. Went to California. Died on the flight back to Texas. So California, and I believe it was Nevada that he was flying over on the way to Texas, and at the moment he died, and then Texas were all, no, the estate needs to be administered here so that we can collect our taxes because he died here, so that's what we want to do. So all of these states were claiming jurisdiction because he was on an airplane. Okay. So really, even the states back then wanted to get a piece of it because of the estate taxes, and it was enough for them to try to contest things. Now, what made all of this all the more ridiculous is that he didn't have a good, properly drafted, well, it should have been a revocable trust. I mean, even at that point, revocable trusts were out there and available. In fact, the first trust ever to be done in the United States, you might remember this lawyer's name. It was a long, long time ago, even before it was the United States. The lawyer was named Patrick Henry, and he did a revocable living trust for the lieutenant governor of the colony of Virginia. So it's not like these things weren't around, but the revocable living trust would have avoided all the probate part of it. No, didn't have anything. But that didn't mean that people weren't coming out of the woodwork trying to claim that they had a written will. All right, let's keep going with the article. In Texas, the estate of someone who dies without a valid will is divided among any surviving spouse and children. The first contender out of the chute was former Hollywood starlet Terry Moore. She said she married Hughes in 1949 at the age of 20 in a civil ceremony performed by a ship's captain in international waters off California. Oh, really? The records of this marriage were dumped overboard, she said. Oh, okay. And the marriage was kept secret to protect her Hollywood image as a naive, innocent young thing. Yeah. Further, she claimed Hughes fathered her child, who was born in Germany in 1952 but died shortly afterward. Since then, though, she has married and divorced 3 other men, including Glenn Davis, the famous Army halfback. So, football player. Gregory threw out her claim without even letting a jury consider it. Okay. So it's not limited to just people off the street, but actual Hollywood stars or former stars. Then came a woman who called herself Halise Havespian Hughes from Atlantic City, New Jersey. She burst into tears outside the courtroom when asked to supply identification before being admitted. She said Hughes married her in 1946 and asked her to take the name of Jean Peters, the actress who was Hughes' second wife, whom he married in 1957 and divorced in 1971. Okay. So he wanted her to take a name of someone that he was going to marry in the future. Okay. Hughes married his first wife, Ella Rice, in 1925 and later divorced her in 1929. No children resulted from either marriage. Later, Halise Havespian said Hughes raped her when she was in a mental institution. So she was formerly in a mental institution. Gregory dismissed her claim.